Hey there. You want to talk about surprises?
Can I go first? Or are you going to play the cancer card?
Well, I'm going to save that one for later. I want sorbet.
So you talk about surprises.
Yeah, what surprised you? You got 3 things?
I have 3 things that surprised me. I have 2 for sure.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that surprised me, actually the easiest one I think is, I've been surprised and I don't know why, that it's so hard to get places to call us back. We call and say, hey, we're supposed to make an appointment. Somebody called and said, this is what we're supposed to do. And places just don't call back. You have to be really pretty persistent.
Yep.
And again, I feel kind of dumb for being surprised by that.
No,
but I am. I think the other thing that surprised me was your sensory sensitivity. I did not see that coming at all.
Give me an example.
So, especially early when you came home from the hospital, the lights bothered you, noise bothered you, little bitty sounds would bother you. You would tell me to take it down, which anybody who knows you knows that that's probably never happened. You're a pretty loud guy. So just the just lights and sounds and motion would trigger you, would be overwhelming for you. So I think that surprised me. I didn't expect to see that. Oh, and I have 3. I can do 3.
Hope so, otherwise we've got to change the whole blog.
The Tylenol thing surprised me, and man, that was such a just overwhelming thing that I'm like, I should have figured this out, but I didn't figure it out. I mean, they were giving you Tylenol in the hospital, and you were alternating it with the Oxy, and so in the hospital they were grinding it and putting it in your feeding tube, and so I just assumed that that's what we would do when we got home, but number one, the grinder wasn't able to grind it small enough. And then, of course, eating Tylenol isn't a pleasant thing. Just generally, nobody wants to eat Tylenol powder. But then if you've had throat surgery and you can barely swallow, then that makes it even worse. And so
it burns.
It was, so the first couple of days, I was completely unprepared. We came home, I'm like, I'm supposed to make Tylenol, and I'm mushing up Tylenol with a mortar and pestle and putting it in little cups so that you can shoot it with juice, and every bit of that was miserable for you. And then I was like, well, that isn't gonna work, so we moved to liquid Tylenol, and liquid Tylenol actually wasn't that much more effective because it would come out your nose.
It would come out my nose.
And so then you wouldn't get all of the Tylenol that you needed. And then we found the powdered Tylenol and mixed that in.
That's the stuff.
Sorbet, and that's how it finally. But it took us a minute to figure out a system for that, and I was so surprised that something as easy as Tylenol was so very hard.
Yeah, I'm gonna add on to that last one, and they actually do make Tylenol in swallow-friendly doses, but they're huge. And even now, I still, when I take it, I cut them in half.
Right.
They go down easy, but yeah. So Tylenol was weird.
Yeah.
So
all right. 3 things?
3 things for me. The first thing is how uneven the healing was. Day to day, hour to hour, it was this roller coaster all the time that you couldn't, just because you did it one time doesn't mean you can do it 2 times. Just because you did it 2 times didn't mean you were going to go take a step back. Those kinds of things. So it was so uneven. Chunks, you look at 3-day chunks or stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay,
we've moved into the next phase. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, I never thought I'd kind of like be okay with stuff coming out of my nose. And by saying that, part of what they had to do is they did a graft of my uvula to help sit in front of my sinus cavity. I think that's at least the way I understand it. And so the swallowing I need to keep underneath all of that is the way I think about it. and occasionally stuff gets up and above, and it goes into my sinus cavity and up my nose. And after the first couple of days of it happening, it just happens. It's no big deal. I got stuff running out my nose, whatever. And I never thought I'd get used to that.
I didn't think you would either, especially in the first few days. It made you so mad because that's a big change. It's different. Obviously, we're not used to stuff coming out of our nose. In fact, we're used to that being a bad thing, and now that's a regular thing.
Yeah.
And you've adapted to it.
Yeah, and my third thing is related to one of the things that you said, and that is that everything bothered me. You know, the lights bothered me, the sound bothered me, the noise bothered me. Blah, blah, blah. What really surprised me is how instantaneously short I got. Like, there was just, if something bothered me, boom, I was flying off the rails. And it's been this kind of measured thing to recognize that I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And that's been a little bit harder. So, yes. And then, I guess related to that is I have to adjust to it, and you have to adjust to it.
Yeah.
So if I fly off the handle, if you fly off the handle right away, you're doing the same thing I'm doing, right? You know? And that's not, I don't want to put you in that position. So I'm trying not to fly off the handle about stuff. You know, it just might be quiet as opposed to give feedback.
And I would say the surprise there is, while anybody who knows you, which is no surprise to them that you tend to be loud and talkative and that kind of thing, you also tend to be pretty chill. Not typically someone who flies off the handle or who gets upset at things, is bothered by things. I mean, I think you're just a generally pretty even guy. And so for you to present as really pretty agitated pretty easily was a huge surprise and a huge adjustment for us. But, you know, good thing you're pretty.
Thanks, Rachel.